Hello, and welcome to this edition of People in Transition. I'm your host, Bob Gerst. I've been hiring and mentoring executives, frontline employees, and job seekers for nearly 40 years through a host of transitions, some difficult, but most very good. This experience has given me a bird's eye view on a variety of trends, economies, industry disruptors, and transitions, big and small. It also brought me into contact with the thought leaders and decision makers you need to meet. Imagine knowing exactly what to do next and how to know it's time to make your big job change. We all know transitions can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. And it's even fun when you have actionable strategies and proven tactics to achieve the future you want. We'll share with you the tools and skills that can take your dreams to your next great job. So if change is on your horizon, you won't want to miss this discussion. Also, please subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. John Tarnoff, thank you so much for joining us today on People in Transition. Ever since we first met on LinkedIn, I've been so excited about the prospect of our talking, so I appreciate it.
Bob, it's great to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me on.
John, if you can kind of go back as a young child and think about what it is that you wanted to be when you grew up, what was that picture that you had?
Very early on, I found myself interested in people. And as I was going into school, thinking about this, particularly in high school, I thought maybe I would be a journalist because I was very curious and loved asking the who, where, why, what, how questions. And I was also drawn to cameras and storytelling and visual media. So that's kind of where I wound up, I think, in entertainment.
And John, as someone that has been in the entertainment industry, you experienced a lot of transitions. What did you learn from that experience that is applicable to a job seeker?
Well, I joke about the fact that in my entertainment career, I was fired 39% of the time. And I brought that up in my TEDx talk in 2012, got a big laugh, which I didn't quite expect, but I understand why people would laugh at that because it's kind of a strange thing to say. You don't really habitually talk about the amount of times you've been fired. It's something which in our culture is thought of as kind of shameful. Couldn't hold on to the job. What was wrong with you? You must have done something wrong. Even in a situation where you're part of a big reorg or a layoff, people still feel guilty. It's like, well, why did I get laid off and someone else didn't? Must have been something that I did. The lesson there, and back to entertainment, that's a business that's very volatile. So much of the transition that goes on in entertainment really has nothing to do with you. It really has to do with movies or TV shows that hit or don't hit, power politics in the office, financing, all sorts of reasons why people are being pushed out of their jobs. So the lesson that I learned primarily was resilience and my ability to understand what was what I did, what I didn't do, and create the narrative to move on, reinvent myself, and take the setback as a lesson and turn that into a success.
The line you used is very interesting, that often has nothing to do with you if you get fired, laid off. And that strikes a chord in many people, a lack of control of their environment, of their work life. How do you deal with that lack of control?
Well, first of all, I think anyone who feels like they have control over their work life is living in illusion or denial. Particularly in a corporate environment, you have no control whatsoever. We used to do these very ironclad, supposedly, term employment contracts in entertainment. And I'm sure other businesses have these as well, although I think most work today is moved pretty much squarely into at-will employment. But as paraphrased Samuel Goldwyn, the great producer, or I think quote him directly, he used to say, an oral agreement isn't worth the paper it's written on. And I think the point is that people are very easily swayed into abrogating contracts, pulling the rug out from under you if it suits their purpose. So you really have no security in the job, but what you do have security in is you and what you provide. And I think the big paradigm shift for people today in looking at their careers, because Today, you're not going to be spending 20, 30, 40 years in one company, rising through the ranks, learning different aspects of the company, and then being handed a gold watch and a great pension to live out your years. It's not going to happen anymore. It's not happening for the boomers who are still in the workforce, and it's certainly not happening for the younger generations who are coming up and following us. So you have to rely on yourself to create that sense of stability, because if the rug is going to be pulled out from under you, you want to know exactly what you do well, where you move the needle, what the value is that you can provide, and then take that confidence and that clear understanding of who you are and what you do and apply it to someone who needs that value.
John, you once talked with me about having a personal board of directors.
Right.
Explain, what is that all about?
So in a world that is so unstable, where you really can't rely on the company to support you, you need to have that support on your own. So just as a company will have a board of directors to support the work that it does and oversee that strategy and long-term stability and profitability, you should cultivate a small group of trusted advisors whom you can turn to at any given point to help you through both the ups as well as the downs of your career, including, of course, a career transition. So if you are seeing the storm clouds gathering on the horizon and you see that perhaps the company has changed hands or the last year has been a disaster and you're having a hard time reading the tea leaves because they're sending you very rosy reports and you're seeing great press releases and you know that something's not right here, who do you go to say, hey, I'm seeing stuff going on here. I don't know how to interpret it. What do you think? Should I be looking for another job? Should I be trying to move into another division? How should I prepare for the probable career transition that's going to be facing me in the upcoming months? And if you can gather a group of people around you who support you, who believe in what you do, how you do it, what your values are, goals, maybe they're people that you've worked with in the past, maybe it's a former manager with whom you had a great relationship at an earlier company. However you have developed these relationships in the past, it's a good idea to hold on to them and keep them current and check in with these people regularly to find out how they're doing, see if you can answer questions for them or support them in some way, but also to see if there's a question that they can answer for you.
John, why do you think networking is important? And follow-up question to that is, what do you coach someone who says that they're an introvert or they just don't like the idea, the notion of networking?
Well, the cliche, and it's true, is that your network is your net worth. And particularly in a business climate where you're going to be moving around a lot and where, by the way, only 20% of jobs are actually posted to online boards, while 80% of jobs are filled by referrals, whether internally or externally. You need your network more than you need any other tool in your career toolbox. And to the people, and they are many, they are legion, they are all of us to one degree or another, even the most accomplished salesmen, saleswomen whom I've talked to will say, you know, I can sell anything, but I can't sell myself. So if you're feeling like you're the wallflower at the networking event and you just can't figure out how to engage, you are not alone. But what I would say is that if you have a really clear understanding of who you are, what you do, what you want to do, what the value is that you provide, what the value has been that you have provided in the past, then you don't need to sell yourself. All you need to do is talk about you, what you've done, and most importantly, what you love to do and what you want to do in the future. So the key to networking is not to try to sell yourself. It's really initially about asking questions and starting a conversation. It's really about your curiosity about other people. And through your curiosity, they're going to start asking you questions about you. And if you have that sense of value proposition developed, have that sense of where you want to go, what you want to do, what your aspirations are, well, then you won't have any problem.
I coach people that networking is more about giving than it is receiving or taking.
Absolutely.
Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. My line is that you want to follow the three letters, ABG, always be giving, and that you're in the 80-20 Pareto principle, you're 80% of your networking activity is giving, whereas 20% of your networking is asking. And if you follow that principle where you're always looking for ways in which to wade into your contact list, people that you work with, know, feel an affinity with, and figure out ways that you can help them do better today, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to turn to them when you need them. When you're in a career transition, you lose your job, and you're thinking, oh my God, I got to get back out there. If you've been helping them, whatever it is that they're involved in, helping to build their business, get more clients, learn how to be more productive, take advantage of whatever skills you've learned and help them or mentor them. Then when you come back around and say, hey, I just lost my job and I'm getting back on the saddle to try to get a new one, they will be only too happy to jump in and help you because you've helped them.
John, I've heard you talk a lot about thought leadership. Can you explain to our listeners what that is all about and how should someone use that notion to help them find their next job?
It's kind of like a quick tour of my 3 elements process for career development these days. First element is understand your value proposition, what your superpower is, where you really provide the greatest value. Number 2 is build a community, use your network, leverage your network into a community of like-minded allies who are on the same wavelength with you and who will understand you and pitch in for you. And as you say, thought leadership, this is the 3rd element. This is the essence of professional branding as we do it today in the 21st century. You have to stand up for what you stand for. It's a noisy, crowded environment out there. A lot of people looking for jobs. You probably know these figures better than I do. 250 people on average apply to any given open position. I think maybe 5 to 10 people get that first interview, and then obviously one person gets the offer. So you have to figure out a way to stand out and to build some additional traction beyond what's on your resume or on your LinkedIn profile. And thought leadership is the process of identifying and drilling down on no more than 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 topics of interest to you that tie directly to your value proposition. What your background is, what your level of expertise is, what you do, what you want to do, where the industry is going, relevant topics that are of interest to other professionals in your field, and develop a dialogue with people around these topics. Comment on posts and articles on LinkedIn. Write your own, even better. Share articles. Participate in industry groups. Volunteer. Help put together events. Create opportunities outside of your normal day-to-day work process to become engaged in the future of your industry and to dialogue with fellow professionals around these issues so that they can develop a sense of who you are more than just as it relates to your job. And that personal connection on an intellectual level and on a strategic level is going to help you get above the noise, get above the radar, and get to the head of the class when it comes to getting you in for an interview, making that connection, and getting one of your contacts, network contacts, community members aligned with why they should help you because you're a thought leader.
John, you once told me that the job you want is already inside of you. Tell me, what's that mean?
It's kind of a philosophical foundation to the work that I do. And it is the idea that we really know who we are at the end of the day. We've built up this information through the years that we've been in the workforce and life experiences that we've had. And I use that term because I think it's important for us to look inward first in this process of career development and career transition. Every time we go back out into the jobs marketplace, we bring this most recent job experience with us, for better or for worse. And it is important for us to recognize that regardless of what may be going on the outside, all the information that's happening could be, oh, well, how old are you now? Are you, you're over 50. Well, there's not a lot of opportunities for people over 50. Or, oh, you were with that company. Oh, man, that crashed and burned. Well, good luck on getting another job with that on your resume. Whatever that might be. And it can work conversely. Oh, you worked for such and such a job. Wow, they're hot right now. You shouldn't have any problem finding a job. Here, how about coming into this new company and doing this particular role? It may not have a lot to do with the role that you used to do, but you were working for that company. That company was successful. We want to have you in this company. So you can be seduced by that. You can be smeared by negativity that had nothing to do with you. My point is that you don't want to let yourself ping pong around the room relying on other people's ideas, other people's perceptions, other people's wrong or right assumptions. You want to look inside for who you are, why you do what you do, and where you want to go with it, what you want to do with it now, and use that as the foundation to go out, to find that superpower, that value proposition that you represent. Use that to connect with people, find other people who are aligned with the way you're thinking. Use your thought leadership to get the word out there. And that's how you're going to get your next position. It's all based on who you are, what you do, what you want to do. It's not about what's the job out there that I could fit myself into. What are the contortions that I will go through because I need the work and I've got to get into this company or that company, or this is the role that I've learned how to do. And that's what I am. You're not. You're much more than that. So focus in.
John, someone once told me that a job posting is really an employer's wish list. What do you take from that, and how does that impact your job search?
I would go so far as to say it is not just a wish list, it's a fantasy. It is a complete fantasy, and it is written by a committee of people who really don't necessarily know what it is that they want. They just know that they have an open position. And you've probably been in this position. I certainly have been in this position of having an open job. Someone quits, or someone had to be let go because they weren't pulling their weight, or whatever the situation was. And now you have the most dreaded assignment that any executive can draw, and that is write the job description. It's like nails on the chalkboard. It's the most unpleasant thing to have to do, because you got to think, well, really? Well, what did that person do? And what should they be doing? What really do we want them to do? And where's this thing going? Where do they fit in? And so you turn to HR and you say, could you help me write this job description? Of course, they'll do it. It's kind of part of their job description. And it's never accurate. It's never right. It is, as you say, a wish list. I think it's more of a fantasy around, this magical person who doesn't exist. And the strategy is, well, we'll see how close we can get. And so they begin to screen candidates based on the job description, which is a faulty construct right there, right? Because they're screening people based on a fantasy or a wish list. And this is why you have applicant tracking systems and all sorts of other statistical analysis process going on, and companies making a lot of money off of the insecurity and the unwillingness of hiring managers to really figure out what it is that they want. So hiring managers and HR can kind of offload this onto the bots, right? But at the end of the day, it all gets down to this. You'd rather hire someone that you know. So again, 80% of jobs are filled through referrals. You got to post a job. Maybe someone's going to come in, it's going to knock your socks off. Probably not. Probably it's going to be someone that you're going to promote from within, or it's a friend of yours who says, you got to meet this guy or this gal, they're great, and you hire them. So your job really is to be, in getting a job, is to be one of those people who gets referred. Don't worry so much about the job description. Don't worry about whether you have 5 out of the 10 skills, 8 out of the 10 skills. Because what's going to really happen, for better or for worse, is that they're going to hire the person they like for the job. They're going to gloss over what they lack in skills, and then they're going to probably realize, and maybe even be honest about the fact that, well, the job description is really kind of a fantasy. And really, I've met with this person, they can do the job. Oh, okay, well, hire them. So we live in a broken hiring system. And I just really want people to feel at least a little bit reassured that they have the ability to navigate this system, not by kowtowing to it or conforming to it, but by circumventing it. Be respectful of it, because it's there to trip you up. So you have to be respectful of the trap, the many traps that are being laid for you in the hiring system. But learn your tools, develop your value proposition, work with your network, brand yourself, distinguish yourself, and that's the way you get it done.
John, there are certainly a lot of layoffs that are taking place in today's marketplace, tech industry and other industries. Have you seen anything that an individual has used to effectively deal with the emotions of being laid off?
The biggest problem that any of us will have in a layoff, not just the sense of failure or something wrong because we got stuck in that net, but it's the loss of the workplace. It's the loss of the community. It's the loss of the 10 hours a day, at least, of mind width that was focused on doing your job and working with those people. And now that's gone, and you're home and staring at the wall. Maybe it's a little bit different now post-pandemic, where we've been used to working more at home. So we're more familiar with being at home, working out of home, but still, you're not on those calls anymore. Your Zoom schedule or your team schedule, all of this is, your Slack channel is kind of empty. The traffic is gone. and you feel completely depleted, alone, and ejected, abandoned out in the cold world. That's the big problem. Strangely, corollary problem to that for people who have been let go from really senior positions is this sense of, oh my God, how do I get back to that status that I've lost? It's a tremendous loss of cachet. And from an ego standpoint, that can be really crushing and paralyzing. And a number of the clients that I've worked with who come out of senior positions, this is their biggest problem. It's like, well, I can't take anything less than this position. I can't be in a company that's less than a Fortune 1000 company, right? The status kills them, and they don't see the opportunities that are out there that are actually perhaps more nurturing for their growth than simply a title or a EBITDA figure. And I think this applies across the board to all of us. Again, looking inside, don't look outside. Look inside to what you want to do now, what you can do now. What is the value that you provide? It's not about the position. It's not about the externals. It's about connecting on the value. And that's going to cut through the noise and get you into a position where you can actually get something done, actually build your reputation, build your accomplishments, build your network, and position yourself for continued growth.
Funny that you describe it like that, and the emotions. I've been through a transition as well. And I remember thinking one day, people used to fight to get onto my calendar, and now I'm fighting to get onto someone else's calendar. And it was very difficult to reconcile that shift that I went through.
So it's very real.
John, kind of a two-part question here. What's your views on LinkedIn and how you might use it in a job search most effectively? And then how should you have your LinkedIn profile relate to your resume?
Well, I love LinkedIn. Big believer. I'm a LinkedIn learning course instructor. I have 4 courses on the platform. Love those guys. I think they do a great job. It is a unique, amazing resource for all of us. If we didn't have LinkedIn, I don't know what the heck we would do, because it does so much to support professionals around the world in connecting to one another, in connecting to jobs, and giving us an opportunity to be thought leaders. So just a couple of things about the LinkedIn profile. Your headline should be not your job title. That is the biggest mistake that people make, is to make their headline their job title. LinkedIn is not about your current job exclusively. Yeah, to a certain extent, of course it is. It is really a more general opportunity for you to present yourself as a multidimensional professional in your field who just happens to be working in your current job at this current time. So your headline should be a collection of the roles and the impact that you make through the work that you do. So a function and an adjective, a handful of those go a long way. So sales and marketing leader, effective team builder, seasoned HR professional. So you create a image in the reader's mind of a multi-part, deeper career than just the single job title. You also need to be mindful of search in the headline, because people will be searching for roles. And if you are a director level person and you want to be a VP and you have your director title in your headline, people who are searching for directors will find you, but people who are searching for VPs will not find you. So you want to be mindful of how the search aspect of LinkedIn plays into the way you create your profile. The second thing I want to say about LinkedIn is that your about section is crucial to your career direction. Most people use their about section to create a kind of a mini bio, if that, where they basically condense their resume into a few sentences or a paragraph of text. Wrong. In my view, the about section is a personal mission statement about who you are, why you do what you do, and where you're going. You want to use your about section as a conversation starter so that you can connect with other people who respect your background, understand your motivation, are impressed by that, maybe even moved and inspired by that and relate to where you want to go and relate to what the future is going to be, so that they read that and they go, yeah, that's the kind of person that I want to know. I want to connect with them. I want to learn more about where they come from and what they're doing and why they're doing it, and see if we have some points in common. And then to the second part of your question about the relationship between the LinkedIn profile and the resume, I believe that the experience section of your LinkedIn profile is your master resume. You want to put absolutely everything in there. And then when you apply to a job, you'll want to customize your submitted resume to tailor the information to meet the expectations of that position. Now, having said that, you're going to hear a lot of people say, well, no one's interested in more than the last 5 or 10 years of your job. So don't put anything more distant than 10 years. Don't put your age on your resume. Don't put your graduation dates. Avoid ageism by ignoring all of that. Yeah, I think this is bad advice, because what you're doing, first of all, they're going to find out how old you are. You can't hide that. So if you are trying to hide it, they're going to see through it, and that's not good, because if you're hiding this, then what else are you hiding? And if they're really going to, if they're ageist, if they're really looking for someone who's younger, if they have a bias against older workers, and somehow you either get in there and they do end up hiring you, and you are working in this environment where there's all this anti-age bias, do you really want to work in that job? Do you really want to work for a company that doesn't value you for who you are and what the experiences that you bring to the table? I don't think so. Back to the profile, you still want to include everything that you've done. But people are right. The hiring manager wants to know what you've been doing recently, because that is the most relevant information that pertains to the job at hand. So you put detail in for the last 5, 10 years, the past probably 2, maybe 3 jobs, and then you summarize. And there are tricks that you can use on LinkedIn to kind of summarize everything into smaller sections. But you want to be able to share the breadth and the depth of your experience, because that's what distinguishes you from someone who is younger, less experienced, may not have all of the angles on business that you do. Why are you going to tie one arm behind your back to kind of fit into some abstract career person's idea about what you should or shouldn't do? You want to present the maximum value that you possibly can. So take that for what it's worth and see how you can apply that into your profile.
John, do you have any books or other resources that you think would help our listeners in their personal job transition?
Well, shameless plug, I will plug my book, Boomer Reinvention, How to Create Your Dream Career Over 50. It's launched as a bestseller on Amazon. I was able to get on CBS This Morning to launch the book. So very humbled by that experience. It was great. And it seems to have helped quite a number of people, because the book continues to sell quite well. And in addition to outlining the career reinvention experiences of a handful of people, different walks of life, great stories, I talk about a 5-step process to re-engage with yourself, again, to look at that career that's already inside you, to reconcile the limiting beliefs, the baggage that you may have accrued over time, to start to express yourself through the work that you can now do going forward, to then connect with other people through your network, to road test those ideas that you're developing in the value proposition, and connect to like-minded professionals who will bring the opportunities to you.
John, if our listeners take away 3 things from our discussion today, what are those 3 things that you want them to remember?
Well, again, I think the first thing, and you've been giving me plenty of opportunities to talk about this in the conversation, is this idea that the career you want is already inside you, and that you really want to stand tall in who you are. Don't be ashamed by all of the negative messages that you get about whether it's your age, your level of experience, whatever might come at you from the world. Know that inside there is a vibrant, effective, relevant, experienced professional who will have an opportunity to do their best work. And then I would say, again, I was just kind of alluding to this, the other aspect of this is to realize that in order to create the future, we have to reconcile the past. You don't want to be going into new meetings with old hesitations. If you have insecurities about having been fired, and by the way, they're going to ask you about that in the job interview, you better be prepared. Whatever it is about your background that's unsettled or unsettling to you, it's time to reconcile it, because you want to be going forward in every conversation in full acceptance of who you are, what you do, what you can provide. And people are going to be looking for those subtle signals that you present in those conversations. And if anything is out of whack, and this is particularly true the older you get, because think about it, the older you get, the more people think that you've got it figured out. And if you're over 50, you're probably going to be going into job interviews with people who are younger, in their 30s and 40s. And on some level, they could be either in awe of you and your experience or intimidated by you and your experience. So it's really important for you to be really clear, really loose, really confident, really happy about being in that room, having that conversation. And this kind of brings up the third idea, which is be a servant leader. Take your experience, what you've learned, your wisdom. Don't beat people over the head with it. Don't talk about how, well, in my day, this is how we used to do it. No, ask questions. Use your wisdom, your value, your experience to help other people solve their problems. Be a mentor, and be a mentor in that job interview. Ask good questions about what the company's going, what the position is, what the goals, the aspirations are for the position. Detach from the outcome, whether you get the job or not. You're here to provide as much value as possible in this interview, and you're there to help them make the best decision for them. Bob, I know you had one of your questions that you wanted to cover is this question of someone says to you in a job interview, why should we hire you? Which I think is it's a question that gets asked a lot. I think it's a completely unfair question. And I think it's important to push back on that question and say, well, first of all, I can't answer that question for you. You're going to have to answer the question based on whether you think that I'm actually the best fit for this position. What I can tell you is that I do A, B, and C. I love doing A, B, and C. Here's why I think I do it as well or better than any other people that you might be meeting. And here's how I see the world of work. Here's my sense of what your company is about. And here's how I would function if I were to be fortunate enough to be offered the position. So just a little bonus tip in there for you and your listeners.
John, thank you so much. I knew this was going to be a great and value-added conversation, and it was. I appreciate your sharing your thoughts and ideas. Thanks, John.
It is my pleasure. It's great to talk to you, great to talk to your listeners. And again, if you want to connect with me, you can reach me through my website, johntarnoff.com, or on LinkedIn. Just search for me using my name on LinkedIn, and I'm right there.
Thank you for listening. We're working in unprecedented times. The purpose of these episodes is to give you the support and critical tools to adjust with the changing marketplace. I'll continue to introduce you to guests who have successfully survived their own obstacle course and can share useful information. If today's message was helpful to you, please share it on your social media. Your review and rating helps get this to more people. Also, if you have questions or podcast ideas for future conversations, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Change is constant. The more prepared you are for it, the better and easier the change will occur. Thank you again. This is your host, Bob Gerst. See you at our next episode.